Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about chapter one, and there's really not much going on in chapter one. And every year I go, maybe I should just make a little video about chapter one and just be done with it. But we're going to cruise through chapter one, but really this class kind of starts with chapter two, which we'll go right into obviously after chapter one. So chapter one is kind of an introduction to sort of chemistry. Um, and why is chemistry important? Chemistry is important obviously because it is really the study of matter and sort of how matter changes. And we do see it really affect a lot of areas of our lives you may not think about. For example, like fireworks is chemistry happening. Those are electrons being excited, giving off energy in the form of light that you can see. And on the 4th of July, we look up and maybe some days before and after, we see fireworks and look at the pretty colors. Things like food, there's food chemistry, uh, shampoo, personal products all involve chemistry. So it does enter a lot of areas of our sort of uh, everyday life. And when we talk about chemistry, which is really the study of matter, matter is really anything that occupies space and has mass. And as we'll talk about, it involves things like matter in its solid state, which is typically where we have everybody packed in really tight to one another. There's not a lot of room for movement. A lot of things are in the liquid state where we're still relatively close to one another in terms of how things are packed in there, but there's a lot of room for sort of movement. It has a little bit more energy actually associated with it. And that's why when we think about things that are liquid, they pour, they flow, right? Because they're able to kind of move past each other as they have a lot more energy. And then obviously matter a lot of times can be found in the gas state. And in the gas state, that is when things are completely broken apart from one another. They're flying around, they're causing against the walls of the container, causing pressure that we associate with it. What we deal with is matter in these states as they transition from one state to the next. So for example, here, as we go from solid to liquid, that is the process of melting, right? Like you're melted an ice cube. As we go from liquid back to solid, that is the process of freezing. As we go from, say, liquid to gas, that's the process of evaporation or vaporization. Gas back to liquid is the process of condensation. There's also the process as we go from solid directly to gas, skip the liquid mess. That is what is known as sublimation. Close to the top. Kind of like dry ice, right? If you've ever seen dry ice or used dry ice, goes from solid to gas, no liquid cleanup in the middle, just kind of pops on over there. We can also do the opposite, gas back to solid, skipping the liquid. That is known as deposition. So a lot of what we deal with in chemistry deals with states of matter as they transition from one state to the next. And really a main aspect of that is the energy component that we will also talk about in the chapter. There's a whole chapter on energy coming up. When we talk about energy as we go from solid to liquid to gas, does that require energy to be put in or released when we do that? What do you think? So you have an ice cube. Do I need to put energy in to get it to liquid water, or do I got to take energy out? You actually have to put energy in to do that, right? So if you take ice out of the freezer, picks up the warm air, right? So it's picking up the energy from the warm air and it starts to melt. You want to make some pasta for dinner, right? Take some liquid water, put fire underneath it, right? Absorbs all that energy. It starts to boil, right? You get steam, right? Which is basically water in the gas phase. So these are all processes where energy is absorbed. And that is in chemistry what is known, and we'll talk more about it, as an endothermic process. And the opposite is true. As you go from gas to liquid to solid, energy is actually released in that case. And that is what is known as being exothermic. So if you think about gas molecules flying around, as they lose energy, they no longer are flying around as fast and they don't have as much energy. So when they come in contact with each other, they kind of stick. They don't have enough energy really to bounce off and break apart, and they fall into the liquid state. You continue to remove energy from that, everybody will slow down and basically lock into the solid state at that particular point. By the way, that's what happens when you put like liquid water into the freezer. The water that goes into the freezer is at a warmer temperature, right, than the freezer. So the water loses all its energy and loses its energy and starts to slow down and become like ice right at that point as it releases the energy to the colder freezer. As we'll talk about, heat always travels from hotter to cold in that situation and in every situation. So chemistry again deals with matter, how it changes, energy component to it is a lot of sort of what we deal with when we talk about chemistry. Any questions on that? Now, obviously, we do a lot of problem solving in chemistry, and we'll talk about that really more in chapter 2 in terms of actual calculations. But really, a lot of science and a lot of sort of discoveries in science really all starts with some type of observation, and that's really the leading to sort of the scientific method. It's some type of observation that's made, and you go, that's interesting. I wonder why that perhaps happens. So when we have an observation and we want to sort of figure out maybe why that's occurring, one of the things that we want to do is think about a hypothesis. And a hypothesis is a good hypothesis is typically something that is sort of testable type of experiment to maybe either prove your hypothesis. So this is some type of testable sort of explanation of some observation that was made. And usually what that will lead is to some type of experimentation being done to help either again confirm or sort of deny your hypothesis that you came up with. And that leads us really to sort of the scientific method, which is sort of here, and we'll kind of talk about the main parts of it here. Come back. Go. So as I mentioned before, really it all sort of starts with an observation. And if you're working for somebody, you'll go tell them, hey, I just maybe noticed this. And they'll go, cool, once you come up with a hypothesis of why that might be happening, and then why don't you go do some experiments? And usually as you do your experiments, what will typically happen, obviously, is you'll make more observations. And again, maybe they will sort of correlate to your hypothesis and you'll be done. But in most cases, what happens as you go through experiments is maybe what you were looking for, you observe, but maybe you observe some other things happening, and that leads to more observations. And more observations will lead to perhaps more hypothesis, a revision of your hypothesis, and more experimentation. It can end up being a vicious circle, if you will. If you ever do research in school, that is like the circle. You like tell your professor, hey, I found this. Oh, cool, go do this and find out why this is happening and stuff. And before you know, you're just kind of going back and around and around. But hopefully after a bunch of experiments and results, maybe a couple things might come out of it. And one is a theory or a model, or perhaps a law might come out of it. And there sort of is a difference between sort of a theory and a law. A theory, for example, is something that is a model of how we think something is happening and why something is happening. So you could almost think of it as like a tentative explanation of, this is what is occurring in this situation. Now, the deal with the theory is further experimentation may lead to it not being correct. Maybe not all aspects of it is correct. Maybe some things are correct, and later on people do more experiments and go, well, this is right, but this not so. So for example, Dalton's atomic theory, a lot of it is correct, all the parts of it. But there are some parts where, for example, where he says like all atoms of the same element are identical. And later on after that, somebody discovered where are the have different numbers of neutrons, which means they're not identical atoms of those things. So although he was correct on other aspects of it, not every part of his theory is correct. Or the Bohr theory of the hydrogen atom, which works really great for hydrogen and one electron sort of atoms. But when you get to atoms that have multiple electrons, it doesn't really hold up. So again, theories are things that do explain what's going on, but they cannot be applied to like everything. It's a all be all sort of situation. You know, it's always correct in all aspects of it. Now that's different than say a law. A law is something where no matter what happens, no matter what you do, it's always going to happen that same way. So for example, the law of conservation of mass says that we do not create nor destroy mass along the way, but it is conserved. That is really the reason why, for example, we balance equations in chemistry, which means if we start on the starting part of our reaction with like 4 carbons, we will end up with 4 carbons on the product side or the end result of that reaction. They may be in different things, but we had 4 carbons that we started with. Each carbon is like 12 grams. So we had 4 times 12 that we started with. We have the same 4 carbons and different things on the right-hand side, which has the same 12 grams per carbon. We have that conservation of mass that occurs no matter what you do. Although they may be different compounds on the right-hand side, we do have that conservation. Oh, conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but can be transformed from one place to the next. So we think of energy as like a nice, perfect transfer from one place to the next. So chapter, yeah, we'll try. Falls off the hill. When it does fall off the hill, it transforms into kinetic energy and continues until it hits the ground, where it then will transfer energy to the ground. And if you add up all that energy along the way, it's the same energy as we started with. It just ended up in different places. So that is sort of the difference between a law and a theory. A law, again, always going to happen the same way, no matter what the situation is. A theory is really an explanation or tentative explanation of how we think things are happening, but definitely can be revisited through further experimentation and revised or found to be maybe incorrect in certain aspects of it. Any questions on that there? That's chapter 1. Yeah, there it is. All right.